Sunday Forum. We're very glad you're here, whether with us in person or online. My name is Jackie Prince, and I'm a member of the Sunday Forum Committee. Special thanks this morning, as usual, are due to Alex Johnson, our tech expert who keeps this program running. We're fortunate this morning to have our outreach director, Hannah Campbell Gustafson, to introduce us to the 3 Plymouth partners who will share our Easter offering. Hannah, an ordained minister, has been with Plymouth since March of 2019. Many of us have come to know her because she's managed to keep outreach connections alive through the challenging years of the pandemic. After earning her BA in Religious Studies from Carleton, Hannah earned a Master's of Divinity and a Master's of Social Work at the University of Chicago. She spent her career working with churches and nonprofits in the area of homelessness and mental health. As outreach coordinator, she works closely with E.J. Kelly and the Board of Outreach. Hannah, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thanks, Jackie. Let's see. So I am always getting used to a space and getting used to the faces. I'm glad to be here this morning with you all. And I'm slightly distracted by the noise. I'm sorry. And I did want to say before I started that questions, and I want this to be fairly informal, so questions throughout would be helpful. Especially, we'll be talking about 3 different nonprofits that we're partnering with through the Easter offering. So especially after each of those sections, I think it would make sense to have questions. So the Board of Outreach, every year there is money that we give through our community fund. This year, I just forgot the numbers. I was going to give that 95,000 to the community fund. And then we also have our Easter and Christmas offering, which are special offerings that we share with different organizations. So this year for our Easter offering, we are giving the money to Habitat for Humanity, the drop-in program here at Plymouth, and Simpson Housing Services. An article that EJ shared with many of us on the Board of Outreach, I think in the fall, came out of a book called A Conspiracy of Love, Following Jesus in a Postmodern World by Kurt Struckmeyer. And in that article, Kurt talks about compassionate action and talks about compassionate action as being made up of 3 parts. So we have charity, service, and justice. And I think we can probably have some idea of what those 3 might look like. So charity, giving people the physical goods that they need for survival. So food, water, clothing, housing, those very physical things. And then service, I think, again, we have an idea of what that might look like. Service can look like something like serving a meal or helping to build a house, things that we are doing with our bodies in service of other people. And then the justice piece, so seeking to eliminate the root causes that are causing suffering in our world, right? Seeking social transformation. So those 3 pieces as being really important in compassionate action. I bring that up because with the Board of Outreach, one thing we've been talking and thinking about a lot is how we make sure that that we are living into those pieces of charity, service, and justice in our relationship with different organizations. So for instance, if we are giving money to an organization and helping them provide, that if we're giving them money, that is an act of charity, but we also are working to develop relationship with organizations. So we'll talk more about this. Well, I guess I can think of a different example. So if we think about Beacon, we give money to Beacon, but we also have volunteers who volunteer with Families Moving Forward, or who volunteer who volunteer at Lydia, which is a Beacon. I don't even know if I pointed the right direction. Volunteer at Lydia, but then we also are part of the justice work of Beacon. So Beacon is involved in advocacy at the state capitol, and with politics in other ways. And so we have members who are involved in that justice work. So we think that that's really important to try to figure out how to have relationship with organizations in all three of those ways. Does that make making some sense? And I guess one piece, I'll talk about this more later when we're talking about drop-in, but that this relationship and connection piece is really important. And I just finished a book yesterday on burnout. And one of the things that the authors talk about a lot in the book that is probably familiar to us, but they cite different research about how as human beings, we need connection with other people to survive, literally. So we don't, while the charity, the food and the clothing and water and housing, while those are absolutely critical to our survival, we also need connection with other human beings. So that is also part of all of this work. So I think with that sort of as a framing, or as my framing, I will turn it over to John Davenport to talk about Habitat, our first of the three organizations. So.
Thanks very much, Hannah, for that brief introduction. I have been affiliated with Habitat in this congregation for about 20 years or more, 25 years. I dropped out, let me just review. I came to church here for the first time in 2004. I had got familiar with Habitat from my previous church, and I'd done a program with them, and I thought this is a great idea to get involved at Plymouth. And so I started working in 2006 with Habitat here. And I had worked up until about 2 years ago, not just because of the pandemic, but because my wife and I left the church because of the tapestry turmoil, you might say. And that, of course, is very temporary. And one of the things that happens when you leave a church is that you lose all your friends, or you just don't have as much contact with them before. And that is not only a good part of being in a church, but it's also one of the things I think that Habitat attracts people for, working along with your friends, and in this case, from your church, which you can do some daily work with. And the work that you do is very, very pro community. And that's one of the reasons that Habitat has been supported by Plymouth for a long time. The history of Plymouth is started back in the 80s when a couple of our members who have since died got to work down in Alabama or Georgia, where Habitat was founded. And then later on became a very important part of President Jimmy Carter's work before he was president. So to make a long story short, I have information. I became part of the leadership group of Habitat, the committee, back in 2006, I think, or 2008. And that time I started accumulating information about who worked and how many days they'd work and so forth. And so we have a long history of very good participation in the church with these sort of activities. Habitat has several activities. The primary one is building and repairing homes, new homes from the ground up, and repairing older homes that are being occupied by usually single parents or individuals. And though houses depreciate and they become need for upgrade and repair, sometimes new structures like porches or decks are put on. So our Habitat organization here consists of a small board of usually 5 or 6 members, which I was a part of during this period when I was very deeply engaged. And we coordinate the Habitat program with the church. So we are the ones that deal with Habitat, which is a Twin Cities Habitat is based in St. Paul. And we have a representative there that relates with our program here. So we have a close contact with the whole organization. And that's a very important because our work is really improved and facilitated by the work that they communicate with us. So for the details, every year we have 2 programs. One is to build a new house, and the other is to repair, as I said. That second repair work is called Brush with Kindness, which has been around, I'm not sure how long. That has been since initially it was building new homes, and since then it's become more complex. In addition to building homes, the Habitat organization has a strong financial support so that the people that are receiving these new homes have financial challenges. And so Habitat has a program to not only select the people that would like to have a new home, but teach them how to deal with the mortgage. And in fact, Habitat organizes mortgages for these people that it's not incredible, very expensive. So it can be afforded. So the families need to know about how to deal with their lives and how to deal with the mortgages. So that'll succeed. So they will have a house and they will stay in it for a long time, which is, there's a lot of these subtle social kind of conditions or situations that are important for somebody receiving and profiting from a new home, profiting for their family, not because they're making money. So these new Habitat homes have a physical on-site supervisor, we call the site supervisor, which organizes, brings the materials to the project and introduces us, shows us where to find them so we can come and work without having to bring our own equipment. We have some members who have their own equipment and like to bring that, and that's of course okay. But the major value for the participants is that we get to work along with our church members. The two exceptions for that is one person, usually the man from the home, that's family that's being, the home is being built for, is doing some limited, I think 50 hours during this whole build project, which is called sweat equity. So they contribute to the building of their own home so they can not only see what's going on, but see what it takes to build it and get an idea of how to do good upkeep. After the home is built, then Habitat doesn't hover over them, but they do follow up and see how it's going and deal with all the kinds of questions that come up with new homeowners. How do you deal with this? Making sure the neighborhood is fine and so forth, so that it's social and financial that the Habitat helps with, which is very important to making the whole whole program work. So as far as what our volunteers do, we have organized, soon as we know the program, and at this time of the year, the building week will come up sort of the end of May or in June, which is usually when the kids get out of school, and families can help to work because they have time where they can volunteer and work with us. And that's a week's worth of commitment from church. We have volunteers mostly from our church, but sometimes we have friends of the church members who are not church members who come and help us. But I would say 98% of the volunteers come from Plymouth. In any week, we have between 30 and 40 members that work with us, and we know them, or we get to know them during the work week. Members can work for one day or all 5 days a week. Usually the weeks are Monday through Friday, but sometimes we start on Tuesday and go through Saturday. So people that can't work during weekday can come and help us on Saturday. And that's been very successful. The work that we do is mostly in Minneapolis. We've done a couple of projects in St. Paul, and usually in South Minneapolis or North Minneapolis, just because that's where the lot properties are available to build, and also where the people that are in these parts of the city are more likely to be good candidates for the Habitat programs. So we have the 30 to 40 church members who are organized. An important part of our Habitat organization is we have some volunteers that prepare and serve the food that we all have at lunch. That's one of the great advantages of the Plymouth system, because in many Habitat homes, the volunteers come in and they're not friends, they're not working for a church, working with a church. And so they go out for lunch. And so our time off for lunch becomes a good social hour. And that, according to the Habitat supervisors that work with us, it's a great value as far as they can see, because we can talk about the work we've been doing during the day and maybe change our organization among the people that are volunteering so they can get to know more people during the Habitat Build Week or Fix Up Week, Brush with Kindness Week. So those are great advantages for our program that have been around since I started in 2006, which is wonderful. We don't do everything. We don't pour the concrete. We don't get up on the roof and put the shingles on. But except for that, we do a lot of stuff. We don't frame the house. We don't put up the studs and the roofing. But once it's done, then we finish, we put the sheetrock on the walls, and we seal it and we paint it. We lay the floors. We don't install the kitchen sink and the toilets, but we sort of cover the floor in the bathrooms. And we we can hang doors and make sure they work well. So there's a lot of important and time-consuming details that we handle. And that's the great value for us doing these projects that are serious. It's not say that everybody needs to be able to be a carpenter when they come in, but can learn a little bit about carpentry so they can do this kind of stuff when they go home. So there's many different sort of linked advantages, and both for us and for Habitat and the home owners. What else do I need to say? So over the last, so this will be the 31st year of Habitat for Humanity from Plymouth, starting in 1993. So this is being our, yes. And I can say almost everybody who is with us today has done the Habitat work. And as I said, some people have worked just once, and there's some people that worked now 22 times, 22 weeks they worked, either 1 or 5 days. And I'm one of those people that used to work a lot. It was something that I really enjoyed. And occasionally I'd say, yes, that you learn about some of you make acquaintances to become close friends in the church. And that, again, is a wonderful attraction, I think, for the whole program. So the two important takeaways, I think, are stated by the leaders of our group, and we say, learn new skills. You don't have to become a professional carpenter, but you learn how to use a saw. You learn how to hammer the nails, which some people, they can hammer a nail that goes, every nail they hammer goes bad. They don't want to ever do it again. I have to say that since I started working with Habitat, I have a whole lot more tools at home. And my wife says, why don't we hire somebody to do that? Because, it wasn't quite so good. I say, okay. So you're not going to be a professional carpenter. Come on in. So I think those are the important things I need to say. And I hope that everybody that's watching home, we don't have a lot of people with us today, but we know that many people do look at our forum at home by videos. And so that's wonderful. Welcome. Yes. Yes, we have a video. One of our church members, Bonhoff, Chris Bonhoff, has worked with us. And I can remember the first time, I think was in 2014, when he became one of the workers in the sites, and he has a professional experience making videos and editing them. And he has made one that we can see, which shows some of the details I described at the work site. So let it play. So we're coming down, looking at the site, and this is actually one of those Brush with Kindness.
They were building a deck. I mean,
Which
I
I
did all
actually
sorts
worked
of
on.
stuff I never thought I could do, and they were so patient and so kind. But when we were done, I thought, I helped build that deck. That's kind of cool.
It's a good cause. One of the houses we did in North Minneapolis, they were getting fined because of the lack of upkeep. Couldn't pay the fines, so it got put on their taxes, then they're delinquent on their taxes, and pretty soon what happens is that they can be evicted. And then you got a homeless family. That's how Brush with Kindness got started, was trying to not only build homes for people who don't have them, but keep homes for people who have them already but are at risk for losing them.
So we just think it's a great organization to volunteer at, and we enjoy the work, and we enjoy getting to know some of the people from Plymouth. It's probably how we've met most of the people we know from Plymouth is through this.
Yeah, it's a win-win, basically. I mean, you feel good about doing what you're doing. You feel good about the people you're doing it with, and you feel good that you're doing something for somebody that you don't even know.
Might say that Dick and Julie Fraser, the people who were speaking to you, have been strong, at least annual, if not twice annual members of the church. One thing you might have noticed in the background is he have long ladders going up to the roof. And we have a rule that not everybody has to be up on the ladder. Some people just don't want to be up there. And some people, mostly guys, but several women have been up on the ladders, usually for painting, which is very important to have the house look nice. So I guess we can have questions.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I did it way back, and then for the first time again last year. And I thought it was so much fun. And I was impressed by all the knowledge that was there among the regulars. And I just painted all day, as you probably remember, but I mean, I didn't feel like I was being asked to do anything that I wasn't feeling comfortable with. And so it was a really good experience, and not scary at all.
Yes.
I'm done now. I don't know. Oh, say it again. Okay. So I did it I volunteered last year for the first time in many years, and it was very comfortable and pleasant experience. And I was impressed by all the long-term volunteers who seemed to know everything that needed to be done, and we're very helpful, and I will definitely do it again.
Thank you. Unrehearsed testimony. That's wonderful. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, Jackie.
I just want to put in a word for the people who supply lunch. If you don't, if you don't feel comfortable working at some point, it's also a wonderful experience just to supply lunch. We usually have 2 or 3 people working together, and you get to see the work in progress, and it's just one day and another just fun experience.
And the people that serve the lunch usually decide what to serve. So we won't look forward to seeing, oh, what do they have today? Which is another great positive. Yes, they use their.
I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly or not, John. So at any rate, it seems to me like the sweat equity requirement has been reduced considerably. They used to have a much more, it's like a 400 hours of sweat equity that was required of a family.
I don't know, but I think.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
I don't know
Anyway,
what it would be.
I really liked that because then you got to actually work with the family and teach some family members how to do stuff that was useful for them to take care of their house. So I don't know if there's a venue for giving that feedback back to Habitat, but it was a valuable part of the program.
Hannah talked about 3 lenses through which we can look at compassionate action, charity, service, and justice. And you clearly see we're raising the money for Habitat right now. This is all about service and being together. And I just wanted to mention a justice component here. Minneapolis, the Twin Cities of Minnesota has a huge gap in equity of home ownership. There's a huge racial gap. It's one of the largest ones in the country, and Habitat is one of the biggest advocates around reducing that gap, both through their action, but at the legislature, and John touched on it, access to financing. And so we can think of Habitat that way too. So often we completely appreciate the work that goes into Habitat, and that's really one of the best parts of it. But Habitat is right at the forefront of the justice work in the Twin Cities as well.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, John. So next, I'm going to talk about the drop-in program at Plymouth. And as you know, as you might know, I am not the drop-in coordinator. I'm the outreach coordinator, but Larry Johnson, who is our drop-in coordinator, is on a much deserved vacation right now. So he's not here. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and then we have a video that Chris Bonhoff made about drop-in that we will share as well. So in case you don't know the history a little bit, our drop-in program and just drop-in programs in general were developed, I think around in the 60s when I could do my math now, but in the 60s in this country, we went through a period of what people call deinstitutionalization. So folks who lived with mental illness, who were often hospitalized until that point or put in some sort of institution. But in the 60s, I think there were lots of different arguments made. People here probably know more than me, but some about cost, that it would be cheaper, but also just that everyone benefits from being in community. So this idea that rather than being in an institution, people should be around other human, not be in an institution and be out in the community. At the very beginning of talking, when we had a smaller crowd, I mentioned research that I've been interested in lately around loneliness and the need for human connection. So I think for me, this is another place of realizing that in order to survive, we need connection to other human beings. So in the 60s, this deinstitutionalization happened, and there was, from what I understand, a lot of talk about how there would be an increase in community services so that folks would still receive the services and the care that they needed. And I think that happened to an extent, but my sense is that at least some people said, well, there needs to be more, we need more support and more services. And I don't know, in a booklet that's over there that you should pick up when you leave about drop-in, there's more of the exact history of how the drop-in program at Plymouth was started. But I know that drop-in programs in general, there are a lot of county programs also were started in response to this deinstitutionalization because care was not perfect for everybody at that time. So the drop-in program at Plymouth has been going we celebrated last week. We had a really great celebration in Jones Commons celebrating the 50th anniversary, though we're up to 52 years now, but it was harder to celebrate 2 years ago. So, and what it looks like right now is on Wednesdays and Thursdays, there is a gathering here at Plymouth or sometimes in various places in the community. And the gathering can include holy bingo, I think Larry calls it. Sacred bingo. Sorry, wrong word. I got the right realm of words, but sacred bingo. We got to play a little bingo last week and get a taste of that, which was really wonderful. There are things like art with Dawn. Dawn's in the back. I know that's something that happens. I don't know. I mean, and walks to an art museum. And then there is Camp Knutson, and there are other trips that happen. So my understanding of it is that we are valuing the human connection and the time. Yes, sorry. Great question. So I mean, the mission or the goal is, as far as I understand it, I'm looking over here at people who might know more than me, but that adults who live with mental illness, often serious mental illness, and might be lower income often, and so don't necessarily have,
Things and people are said, like, or are they homeless, or like, what is it a little bit of everything? Or is it like,
Thanks, John.
yeah,
The term often used these days. Traumatic brain injuries, anything that may impact. And many started going because they lived in this neighborhood. Most of that in group homes. There's a couple that live in Lydia, but I wouldn't call Lydia a group home. It's
Community,
Yep.
and there are some people who live in group homes in the area. There are people who live on their own, but find the community really valuable. They're isolated and maybe talking about, sorry. Loneliness. And so it's a really background.
People who come, they come on their own. It might be under or with the wheels of Metro Mobility or something, or someone giving them a ride or picking them up, but
Do you get a real rate?
yes. And Sacred Bingo draws probably the biggest crowd.
Which can be like 40 to 45. Wow. Third one, oh yeah. Wednesday of every month, and
All are welcome. It's quite something, yeah.
they're always needing prizes.
Yeah, they're always needing prizes, because that's a big part of it. And we lay them out on the table, and when you win, you can come by and take one from this table and a couple from this table, and it's very,
Yeah, no, it's very fun event.
and how do people learn about it?
There's a Larry Johnson, who's the coordinator. He has a monthly newsletter that he gets out to regulars in the whether it's by email or a lot of mail or posting in some places. There's a big word of mouth with drop-in too. And I'd say right now, most of the new people who come, there's someone who they know who comes to drop in. And so they made the connection that way. The tent, yeah, when we had the tent at Plymouth, we'd have drop in out there. And then the neighbors who might be interested in it saw what was going on, kind of easier to approach than coming into the church. And so would stop kind of on the outskirts and ask questions. And so that was a way, especially with Lydia across the street. So, yeah. I don't mean to.
No. Thank you for answering those questions.
And let me add in, drop in as a community. So where everyone is welcome and deals with each other really as equals. So it's not hierarchical. So sometimes Dawn does the art and organizes the art. This month, it's someone else from who you would say is a drop-in regular is doing the art. So on a given day, you may show up and you have no idea who are the targets of drop-in and who are the volunteers, because it's just, it's a mixed community. And there's plenty of us, myself included, that may be fully functional, but have some depression at times. And maybe I'm getting more benefited from drop-in on a given day, and someone else is telling me or showing me how to do something, and I'm the one learning. So that's what's beautiful about it. It's really communal, and there's just this sense of friendship amongst anyone, and you really don't know who's being helped more on any given day.
Yeah,
That's excellent.
Thank you. I think we will watch the video now, and then we'll see if there's more time.
Yeah, let me add, so they do, so the amount so there's some that happens here, but they go on a huge amount of field trips. So this Friday, for instance, they're going to the History Museum, go to Twins games, they other museums in December. in December, 2 years ago, they went to the Norway House to see the gingerbread exhibit, and they said, we can do that. So this year, the Plymouth Drop-In Group created a village. And gingerbread houses, and there were 8 or 9 houses, huge piece of plastic, and then kind of towards the middle was what looked like a church, and someone had made stained glass, a little bit of stained glass in it. Everyone decorated it, and it was submitted. It was actually on a brief bid on WCCO, but so Plymouth had an entry, the Plymouth Drop-In Group had an entry at the Norway House and went to see it. So it's just, and it was one of the members said, let's do that next year. And they all took notes this year when they went and said, this is what we're going to do. This is a really good idea, but and everything had to be edible. So it's almonds on the roof. When someone made took pretzels and made a log cabin. I mean, it was just wonderful. Yeah.
Just a quick question. There used to be a list of what kind of bingo prizes people wanted, and I haven't seen that list lately, but I think, I mean, I would like to donate some prizes if I knew what to bring.
I bet that Dawn and EJ have ideas, and the fact that you mentioned that, I think I will ask Larry if we could put that in the Friday email again, because,
Good.
especially because we
Yeah.
just celebrated. So,
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. So yes, let's watch the movie. Thanks.
I've been playing bingo since 1960, and I played and called over 1,000 games. That's how I started coming here. I've been coming since 1975 on up. It's been a cornerstone for me.
Drop-In for over 50 years now has been a ministry where Plymouth has provided a safe place for people that often get discriminated against out in the world, a safe place to do fun things that they might not otherwise be able to afford to do.
And all the outings and activities I've been to, even with the help of outsiders, that have gotten me to places like Chicago. One day back in 1994, Nancy Bolton's took a small group of us out to the Black Hills of South Dakota. Even going to places in Minnesota like New Ulm, Mankato, Lanesboro, Hinckley, and the list just goes on.
I get very close to the ministers of Drop-In because I'm such a spiritual person. Brandon Preem, who married DJ and I here in the chapel. Plymouth Church is my spiritual home.
Because I don't think the drop-ins made the members. The members made the drop-in. And that's why I'm here.
It's like the New Testament, you know, people saying about the early Christians, look at how they love one another. And I mean, nothing is perfect, but I think more than any place else, the drop-in group is much more caring about each other and other people, and I think often much more grateful in general, just walking around with more gratitude than many other groups.
Thank you for the Drop-In Center. Keep it funded, keep it going. It's so vital. It's such an important part of life.
After I'm gone, I would like the drop-in to receive my property left behind for bingo prizes.
So I think I mentioned this earlier. There are books over on that table that Dawn helped design or designed for the for the anniversary, so make sure you grab one of those. I'm also aware of time and that we have one more organization to talk about. So EJ, you have the mic, so maybe there's some.
Let me make, so just earlier with habitats, I talked about the lenses that Hannah raised for around compassionate action at the start. Charity, which we can see here, the service and justice. And so one of the things the drop-in group does is they have a group that does the NAMI walk. NAMI is National Alliance for Mental Illness, every September. And several of you have participated in that. And so they enter a group in it called the Plymouth Wanderers, and their motto is not everyone who wanders is lost. So that's one way they want to, and the group decided to do it. This wasn't Larry or Plymouth. The group said, we want to be more active around raising awareness around mental illness. So again, something that the group decided. Go ahead.
Thanks, EJ. So the last organization that will be one of the recipients of our Easter offering is Simpson Housing Services, which I think many of us might know because of the shelter that is under, well, will be under construction soon. I don't know if they've actually broken ground yet, but because of the shelter that they've had in existence for a long time, but they also, that's actually their smallest program I learned recently. Now they have, I don't have the numbers, but supportive housing all across, is it the Twin Cities or no? Yeah, all across the Twin Cities, so that providing supportive services while families and individuals are in housing. And then there are other pieces that they do that are really important that we can think about whether, we were talking before about whether something like the homeless memorial fits under charity, service, or justice. Not that things have to fit into that, but I do think that, well, yeah, that's just a question, I guess, that we can think of while we watch a little of some clips from the homeless memorial service that happened December, I don't remember the date, but in December
19th, I believe, of this past December at Plymouth.
Yep.
And the march went from Plymouth parking lot to Loring Park and back.
Thank you. Yes. And so now we're going to watch some clips of the service. I should say while we're watching this part, that the signs that people are carrying have names on them of individuals who died in the last year who had experienced homelessness.
$264 people in the state of Minneapolis who died last year while homeless or formerly homeless.
Here at Plymouth Church who make this possible. I am so excited to introduce you to Buffy Moore. Just an opportunity to say a few words just in the short time, even before the program start. What was so obvious to me is how humanity thrives when humanity is allowed to thrive. That those who are stably housed, those who are provided opportunity, can reveal to the world the soars and heights that are possible for people. And not only that, Buffy herself, who was a participant in Simpson Housing for over 25 years ago, was one of those who, after obtaining permanent housing, began to what I like to call redeem the time. Redeem the time. That the struggle, that the hard work, that the opportunities that were lost because of homelessness, when given the opportunity, when provided housing, when allowed to move and grow, shows how humanity thrives when we ourselves become partners in it happening.
Value. Webster's defines value as the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, the worth, or the usefulness of something. To consider something or someone to be important or beneficial, to have a high opinion of. Good evening. I'm thankful and honored to be here with you today. During my tenure on Simpson's board, I often volunteered to speak at engagements and at fundraisers. These events were valuable to the work that Simpson does. But I feel a special connectedness in being here today in this space, this evening, for this memorial. Some of you may know my story and the history of my struggles with homelessness. When telling my story, I usually leave out a few salient details. I usually don't discuss the mental health issues that I've dealt with and will continue to deal with for the rest of my life. I usually don't discuss the depression, the struggles that I've had with anxiety, or my fight to overcome suicidal ideation. These issues aren't representative of the types of struggles. These issues are representative of the types of struggles that lie just underneath the surface. They're not pretty, and they don't elicit warm, fuzzy feelings, but there's value in understanding them. These parts of my story keep me grounded, and they keep me connected to the housing struggle. They help me to remember that there, but for the grace of God, go I. Each time I pass by the corner of 66th and Nicollet in Richfield, I'm reminded of the bus shelter that I slept at one night with my 5 children. Each time I pass by Hennepin County Medical Center, I'm reminded of my last visit to the crisis center there and the hopelessness that I felt when I walked into that office with my 5 babies and announced that I was going to kill myself. Each time I pass by Sharing and Caring Hands or by the site of the former Drake Hotel, I'm reminded of the temporary spaces that thankfully existed for me and for my babies to rest our heads and to have a hot meal. Every time I drive down First Avenue South in Minneapolis, I'm reminded of the transitional housing apartment that eventually provided me peace of mind and provided me a place to call home. For each memory of the struggles that I survived in my battle with homelessness, I can't forget the memories of those who didn't survive. When I go to my part-time job at Claire Housing, which is a housing first assisted living facility for people living with HIV or AIDS, I'm reminded of the residents there that we've lost over the last 6 years. I'm reminded of a beloved Hennepin County resident who struggled with housing stability. He always would come into our office with a smile on his face to speak and just kind of catch his breath, until one day he just didn't. I'm reminded of some of my GRH clients who continue to struggle with housing stability even after being stably housed. I remember the solemn gentleman who I passed each morning on my way to work. He sat at the freeway entrance like clockwork every single day until one day he disappeared. These are the people who the majority of the world throws away. They don't see the value in these individuals, but I do. And I believe you're here today because you do too.
Howard Lee Westmoreland.
Abdi Jahar Abdullahi.
Jamie Leahy.
Thank you. Hi, We had other clips that we wanted to show you because it's really powerful, but we have had some great conversation this morning. So, so we ran out of time, but this is a video you can watch if you want at some point. I think it's on Plymouth's website. It's definitely on some things.
It's on Plymouth.
Okay.
I think if you click on the Vimeo button, on the top of the page, you can basically search there and just say homeless memorial. So the Vimeo, it's a V. And this is on Plymouth's Vimeo YouTube page, basically. It's the Homeless Memorial March or service.
One more sentence, which is that, well, first of all, I'm grateful that you all are here and that that I hope that you all and everyone will give generously to the Easter offering in support of these organizations.
I wanted to add one piece about Buffy Moore, who spoke. So she ended up getting her master's in social work. She's just gotten that now, and she works for Hennepin County. So she was talking about her clients doing housing social work, but to tie it back to Habitat, ultimately having gone through shelter and then supportive housing, she built a Habitat house with her family. So tying back to her first, so she currently lives in a Habitat house. So just looking at all the interconnection of these groups, and it's the supports and connection and community. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you very much. As members of the congregation, we're very privileged to be close to these inspiring efforts and to have a chance to support them with our Easter offering. And I hope we all do. Please join us again next Sunday when the Immigrant Welcoming Working Group participants who recently took a trip to the Arizona border will report back to us on their experiences there. And thank you very much for being with us.